Hey everyone, James Lynch here. This is one of the weirdest stories I've seen unfold in a very long time. So UFC middleweight champion Dricus Du Plessis posted on Instagram, and courtesy of Home of Fight for grabbing this, another outlet I would recommend following when it comes to real news and legit news. Home of Fight out there, I do some work for them as well. You can see it there. Dricus Du Plessis is not injured and says the fight with Khamzat Chimaev was never signed. Let's read the statement here from Du Plessis. He says, okay, so everyone has their opinions and rumors and stories about the shin break, injuries, etc. I found it all very entertaining. Unfortunately, none of it is true. Myself and UFC already discussed a fight date and opponent. The June fight was never signed. I did not pull out of any fight. I'm the champion. I know when you fight as a contender, just show up when I tell you to. Fight announcement coming soon. Stay tuned. This is weird because Kevin Iole was the one that reported this, and Kevin Iole is a very legit journalist, doesn't get things wrong. I had also heard from someone separate from Kevin that this was the case, that he was injured, and everyone kind of ran with it, and I hadn't heard otherwise. So first off, good news that he's not injured. Everyone wants to see this fight. I didn't think there was any need to do an interim title or any of this different stuff. A bit of a bummer it's not happening at UFC 317, although now we know, as we found out yesterday, it appears that Ilia Topuria will fight on UFC 317, whether that's against Islam, Arman, doesn't matter. Sorry, Islam or Charles Oliveira. But we're still going to get a good fight on UFC 317, so that's good. So I got so many questions about this entire thing. Let's sort of dig into everything that's come out of this statement and some of the things that that I wanted to kind of comment on here. First and foremost, why didn't he post this when this all came out? Okay, if my timeline's correct here, because I did a video on this. Let's go find out when that video was. So I did a video right when this happened, because again, you know, I like if news is coming out. Okay, so I did this video on Sunday, 3 days ago. I think it was more than 3 days ago actually. Talking about DDP being out of the fight and what was going to happen at UFC 317. And today is Thursday morning here on the West Coast. Very early Thursday. That's why I'm a little tired, guys. I just got up. Why didn't he post this right when the news came out? I'm sure he's seeing what's going on in social media. I'm sure someone from his team at least alerted him, being like, hey, everyone's saying you're injured. Chimaev has the tweet out saying, this is BS, all that. Why didn't he just post this right away? That's the part I don't get. So I don't know, like I'm not insinuating anything that he's, making anything up about the injury or anything like that, but I do think it's a little bit weird that he didn't come out right away and say this. Why not put all this out there and put the rumors down? We just had Kayao Borjalho go out and do a bunch of interviews. He did one with Submission Radio, did one with Ariel, and he's talking about an interim title and Khamzat Chimaev and all this different stuff. And it turns out none of that was needed because DDP's ready to go. So that part's a little bit weird to me. So I don't really know what's going on. The other thing is, like, what card is this going to be on? We don't even have, as far as I know, if you look on Tapology right now, we don't have any other cards booked pay-per-view wise outside of UFC 317. I believe they have the Noche UFC card booked. Let me just look here. Yeah, they don't have any pay-per-views booked. Like, I know they usually do a pay-per-view in London, but look at this. Like, so the last pay-per-view is 317. That's at the end of June. Beyond that, other than UFC 320, like, what card is this going to be on? Like, I don't think they're doing another Vegas pay-per-view after 317, not anytime soon anyways. I know there's some rumblings about maybe Louisiana, Chicago. I don't know. There's a lot of talk there. So that's another thing I'm kind of curious about. Like, what card is he going to be scheduled on? And I guess the other thing I'm wondering too is, like, why wasn't this an option for International Fight Week? DDP fought in February. It seems like July is, not that far. Well, yeah, basically July because it's June 28th. Seems like that's not too far away from when he could fight. So I'm also wondering why he can't fight. I do wonder if there was an injury and maybe this is his way of saying that, like, I needed some more time without really saying that. I don't know. It just seems odd that, like I said, the two kind of things that kind of caught my attention, I'm not insinuating anything, is why didn't he post this right away? And number two, why can't he fight on UFC 317? This is a huge event, unless he doesn't want to fight in Vegas, but he's fought in Vegas before. So I don't really know what's going on there. This whole thing's a little bit bizarre, but I guess, again, the good news in all this is that we're going to get Chimaev and DDP. That's the fight that always should have been made. I don't like interim titles. I don't like number one contender fights. A lot of people felt like Chimaev should have got that shot before Sean Strickland. So now you're still going to get the fight. So that's really awesome. And let's hope the timeline lines up with Chimaev as well. Let's hope that the fight does end up coming to fruition. I'll tell you my ideas for the middleweight division in a second here. But I thought that was very interesting as well. Okay. Then the other thing we got to talk about here, because this is something I've seen over the last couple of days. All the people who are in a rush to be like, it's got to be an interim title. Sorry, but if a champion is only out for a little bit, and again, when this injury news came out, and this is something I told a lot of people, I even mentioned that in that video I just showed you, when it came to the injury. Even when the injury came out, there was no talk about it being a long-term injury. All these fans who were rushing to be like, it's got to be for an interim title. First off, they would never headline International Fight Week an interim title, not in anything recently. I know they have. I think the middleweight interim title fight headlined years ago. I think that Whitaker-Romero fight was a main event for International Fight Week, but I believe that was because there was an injury to that Amanda, or there was some issue with the Amanda Nunes-Valentina Shevchenko fight. So first off, they're not going to do a Chimaev-Kayao main event for International Fight Week for an interim title. That most likely was not going to happen. Number two, there's no need to do an interim title when the champion had just fought in February. Like, that's complete nonsense. And again, this ties back to the whole thing I was saying before, where was the outrage when Shavkat Rakhmonov had to fight Ian Gary without a title? Because Bilal Muhammad was the one who pulled out of that fight. You didn't see anyone say that at all. There was no one going around being like, oh, well, there should be an interim title for Shavkat and Gary because Bilal was the one who had to pull out. You didn't hear that. So I felt there was a bit of a double standard with the whole Chimaev fan base talking about it had to be an interim title. Now, like I said in that video, had DDP actually been injured, would have been totally fine with Chimaev and Kayao fighting just for like maybe another number one contender fight. That's fine. Because if you look at it, Chimaev only has one ranked win. I still think he deserves a title shot, but it's not like he has a huge resume of like ranked wins at middleweight that, should get him this title shot. So that was another thing. But it's just another example of fans getting way too reactionary and being like, DDP should be stripped and all that. And I had a guy in my comments, I kid you not, you can go find the comment here. There was a guy in my comments that literally said this, and I think this is like, if this doesn't summarize the newer MMA fan base, I don't know what does, but the newer fan said, I need to go find it in here, but I'll summarize basically what he said. He said that, oh, well, Caio Borralho said that he knows someone that's in DDP's camp, and he said that the shin injury was going to keep him 6 to 8 months, so they should take it out. I'm like, okay, so you're hearing this like third hand, basically, that DDP's out for a long time. That's your source? Like, again, if there's someone legit that covers the sport, like an Ioli or someone that's, on the pulse of everything that's going on here, okay, maybe we can talk about, it being a long-term injury. But like I said, the only reason there should be an interim title or someone should make the title vacant is if it's a long-term injury, like we saw with Jamal Hill or Yuri Prohaska, where they knew right away, they're like, I'm going to be out for at least a year. I don't want there to be any pressure or holding up the division. We're going to vacate the title. That never happened. So I think this is a good lesson just in general. That, until we get all the facts coming out, stop with this whole, like, we need to do an interim title if a champion's out. Like, fans are way too reactionary about this stuff. It's becoming a big problem, actually. Like, everyone wants a title if the champ can't fit on their, supposed timeline. Again, he fought in February. If we're talking about DDP fighting like last summer or something, maybe we can have that conversation. But yeah, I thought that whole thing was totally exaggerated. Okay, before we go, I got some ideas for matchmaking. You guys let me know here in the comments. This is what I think should happen. So the good news is all signs are pointing to Dricus Du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev. The other fight I would do, and I know he turned it down, but like, I don't know why the UFC can't just force his hand here, but it should be Caio Borralho and Nasruddin Imavov. That should be the next fight. They're both kind of in a similar spot, both with a couple big wins. Nimavov finishing Adesanya, Caio beating Jared Cannonier. I think that totally makes sense. I would then do Strickland and Adesanya too, the rematch. That first fight was a huge upset. I would be curious to see how Adesanya looks, especially with Strickland coming off his loss to DDP. Didn't look so good in that fight. I think that rematch makes sense. Here's one that I haven't heard people talk about. How about Robert Whitaker against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez? That would be a great fight. Hernandez coming off a big win over Brendan Allen. Hernandez on the come up. Whitaker has not fought since that loss to Chimaev. Who's the better, contender? I think that makes sense. You could also do Whitaker and Strickland and maybe Adesanya and Fluffy. It doesn't really matter to me. Either way, those are two fights that got to get put together. And then I know some people out there are going to be like, what about Jared Cannonier? You got that big win over Gregor Rodriguez. Let's do kind of like a fun veterans fight, and let's put Jared Cannonier against Roman Dolidze. I think that would be a really fun fight at middleweight. Two older fighters in the weight class. Whoever wins, you then go to fight on a big name opponent here. So that's how I would match up middleweight. We'll see how everything unfolds here. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Really odd situation here. I guess most should be glad that we're going to get the DDP Chimaev fight. When do you think this fight happens? And what's your pick for that fight if DDP and Chimaev do lock horns? Let me know. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.